Welcome back. Jordan Moore and John Jackson, and it's time for the Scouting Report. Game on. Make your move today to the Lorenzo, the most talked about apartment community at the University of Southern California. Upscale student living is waiting for you. Hurry. Spaces are going fast. Don't miss out. Immediate occupancy. Visit thelorenzo.com or call 213-863-4307. All right, JJ, let's break this thing down. We're allowed to call it a big game. Sark hates that term. He hates calling anything a big game. They want every game treated equally. But, for us, anyone that's been around this program the last 4 years, the best games have been against the Stanford team. It always goes down to the last play. Anyone who was in the Coliseum last year will never forget that experience against Stanford. And I think there was some trepidation maybe having this game early in the season, but then you see how they play against Fresno State. Did your expectations change now after you see that first performance?
Well, for me, it's always a danger playing Stanford as early as we're playing them. But after I saw the performance of the Trojans, I'm not as worried about it now. Once again, I thought that with all these young guys playing, all the freshmen playing, and all the new offense, a new system, and all that, it usually takes time. But the way that they played, Stanford has the same problem, I believe, because they have a veteran quarterback, just like we do. But they also are going to replace 4 of the 5 guys on the offensive line as well. So they're in that same, new structure process that we are of guys trying to learn to play together. So I'm glad to get them now, to be quite honest with you, because I think that the way the Trojans played, the momentum is high, the injuries are low, and that's a good formula for the Trojans.
I thought it was really interesting, though, what Sark said. We had sort of mentioned this when we were talking about the game before we got on air. This might not be a typical USC-Stanford game. This might not be just grind it out and, just run after run after run and see who can win 14-10. We got veteran quarterbacks and talented receiving cores and inexperienced secondaries. You seeing that, too, that maybe we might see a higher scoring version of USC-Stanford?
No question. On both sides of the ball, you're exactly right. There's youth on both sides of the ball. Stanford, they have Montgomery and Rector as the receivers. Yep. They're very good. Montgomery might be one of the best in the conference, to be quite honest with you.
He was supposed to be hurt and missed the beginning of the season. But
that was a whole that was a sham. So and he's one of the best kick returners.
Yeah,
really in the dangerous conference as well. So he's a game breaker. You got to try to control him. The Trojans, obviously, without Josh Shaw, that becomes a little bit more of a concern. Remember, a year ago, Josh Shaw lined up against Ty and took him out of the game pretty much. That's why we weren't calling his name a lot in a very low-scoring game. So, they're going to have to step up and try to, pay some extra attention to him. The other big thing with Stanford is they don't have the big power running back. Remember, Gaffney was there last year, 220, 230 pounds, and he was just power football. That's what Stanford ran. Well, with 4 new guys up front, and now the running backs being smaller. You're going to see Barry Sanders. You're going to see Kelsey Young, who is a local guy from Norco. Both smaller scat back types of backs. It's going to change the style that Stanford has to play, and thus it's going to change the game.
New defensive coordinator, Derek Mason, goes to Vanderbilt, where he's now the head coach. Obviously, they looked fine last week. I read that UC Davis didn't get past midfield until the last play of the game. So maybe not the best test in the first game, but do you expect to see a different Stanford defense? They also are replacing a lot of starters.
Well, remember, Stanford was extremely good at rushing the passer and stopping the run, and that's what they did very well. They had a bunch of guys, Scove and those guys in the middle, Murphy, that NFL guys, that were outstanding players and really sort of carried that team really for 3 years, I thought, because they all were 3-year starters. And so with them out of there, it obviously makes life a lot easier. And then also with the tempo, them getting used to playing with each other as well. I'm just glad that run of Stanford, I thought, that for the last 3 years has been really good because those young guys those guys we're talking about were really good, and they carried them for 3 years, in my opinion. So hopefully it'll be a different defense because I'm tired of looking at that defense we've seen for the last couple of years.
Yeah, real quick, what's your scouting report on Kevin Hogan? He's a guy, some people call him a Heisman candidate, but he really did not play very well in the Coliseum last year. Where do you come down on him?
I don't necessarily think he's a Heisman candidate. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he knows the system, plays well within the system, and doesn't turn the ball over. But to me, he's not going to step out and make the exceptional play. So although he's a good quarterback that typically doesn't make mistakes because it's a conservative offense, I expect the Trojans to be able to get after him a little bit and sort of force the issue on him and make him feel uncomfortable, as Sark said, back there in the pocket.
Well, it'll be the challenge of Justin Wilcox, the USC defensive coordinator, and he'll tell us. He probably won't tell us how he's going to do it when he comes back, but we'll definitely talk defense with the guy on Trojans Live as we head towards the end here to wrap things up. It's Stanford week. Bye now.
USC fans,